Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Inflation Reduction Act Town Hall. My name is Angela Hsu, and I am the Municipal Engagement Manager with the Illinois Environmental Council. I am so excited that we have a lineup of really fantastic guest speakers today. We have joining us Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, we have Hal Sprague from Trajectory Energy, as well as Ben Jealous from the Sierra Club. So thank you all so much for contributing your valuable time to keeping us all informed on the Inflation Reduction Act. So I wanted to start off with some housekeeping. Everyone who's joining the Zoom is automatically on mute, and we ask that you please stay on mute during the duration of the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the very end of the presentation. If you have a question, please feel free to enter your question into the chat box at any time. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded. All right, and with that, we can get started. So quickly, just a little bit about the Illinois Environmental Council. We are a nonprofit, and since 1975, we've worked to safeguard Illinois, the people, plants, and animals, and natural systems on which all life depends by building power for people and the environment. We represent over 150 environmental organizations operating in the state, and we carry out our mission by advancing equitable public policies that create healthy environments across Illinois through collaboration, building power, and advocacy. So we work across 6 different issue areas, including agriculture, conservation, clean energy, equitable transportation, clean water, and zero waste. And again, we built this power through coalition building, legislator education, and policy advocacy. So why are we gathering together to talk about the IRA? Well, it is the largest investment in clean energy in United States history. It was signed into law in 2022, and already we're seeing a lot of these benefits across the state. It is a significant action that we've taken on climate change, and investments are projected to achieve up to 40% reduction of climate pollution by 2030. And we're seeing these really huge impacts of transformational climate action. So we're seeing nearly 300,000 jobs being created, and these are good, clean energy jobs set to revitalize the American economy. And we cannot talk about the IRA without the 2021 Illinois Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. So CEJA was passed and has really created the foundation for the IRA to be able to take advantage of all of this federal funding. For example, through the CPRG that we are receiving funding from, that is actually based on the foundation of these workforce hubs that CEJA has built. So we're going to start with kind of a very high level overlook of the programs in the IRA. For example, we have the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, under which we have the Solar for All program from the US EPA. As I mentioned, the CPRG is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, set to help municipalities and metropolitan statistical areas and other regions of the state reduce their pollution and kind of foster this growth in the transportation, power, building sectors, and more. We also have the Rural Energy for America program, and then the Environmental and Climate Justice program, which consists of those community change grants. In addition to these grant programs, we have various tax credits, reductions, rebates, and direct pay. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of the IRA, but it's just some of the areas that we are seeing massive growth here in Illinois and that we'll be talking about today. So starting with the GGRF, or the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, it finances greenhouse gas emissions reductions for communities, and it actually creates these state or city green banks. Again, building off of CEJA that has made this possible, we have the Illinois Finance Authority, which is our state green bank or climate bank. So the US EPA has a Solar for All program that expands existing low-income solar programs, and this will enable 900,000 plus low-income households and communities to benefit from distributed solar energy. And some really great news in Illinois. On Earth Day, we found that more than $156 million is going to be coming to Illinois for this GGRF program. So we can now actually expand the Illinois Solar for All as well as the Illinois Shines programs. So under the US EPA program, we also have the CPRG. And this is really exciting because we found that we were awarded over $430 million for these community-driven solutions to cut climate pollution from the CPRG. And this is really huge. We have been working closely with Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition to ensure that these policy programs are rolling out effectively and getting to the places that they need to be. This will contribute to a lot of the transportation and workforce initiatives that we have here in Illinois. There's also an environmental and climate justice program. The community change grants are an incredible way for partnering with a community-based organization to get this funding for environmental justice initiatives. So there's a couple environmental justice technical assistance centers set through the state. There's the Great Lakes TICTAC as well as the Blacks and Green EJ TICTAC set up where they provide tools and resources to overburdened communities to apply for these grants and learn more about what programs are available. The IRA has several huge tax credit opportunities. And for example, the Clean Electricity Investment Credit, as the name suggests, if you are to invest in a clean electricity project, you can actually get a tax credit back for that work. There's also the ITC or the PTC. The investment tax credit reduces upfront investment costs for a project, while production tax credits generate these credits per kilowatt hour of energy produced. And then on top of that, we also have these bonuses or adders. So let's say you have that tax credit for your clean electricity investment project. And then you say, well, I also use domestic content. The materials of my project are sourced from the United States. And also my project is based in an energy community. That is half of the project getting those tax credits back. Another really big part of the IRA is the elective pay provision. So before, if you were a municipality or a nonprofit, you were not eligible for these tax direct payments before. That has changed, and now under the IRS, you can actually receive these payments directly to you, and the value of the tax credits for building qualifying clean energy projects. We also have a lot of tax credits available for homeowners and renters. For example, I want to highlight the Home Energy Rebate Program coming out from the Illinois EPA. We're actually going to see a lot of these programs rolling out within the first quarter of 2025. The rest of this year, we will have public input sessions from the EPA. There will be a workforce training program, and these programs are actually going to be available directly to homeowners, focusing on the low to medium income. Additionally, let's say you purchased an electric vehicle, whether it's new or used, or you have a heavy duty vehicle program or a fleet. There's also these benefits available to you through these tax credits. And lastly, one more thing I wanted to leave you all with is this really fantastic resource. So let's say you are trying to track what kind of funding is available under the Inflation Reduction Act or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The Climate Program Portal provides resources to municipal decision makers, and you can see in Illinois the different sectors of funding that have been received statewide. And let's say you are interested in getting a program started. You can actually go to the Project Finance Hub from the Climate Program Portal, and you can learn about the financing mechanisms. You can find technical assistance available to your region, and you can also contact the program portal to learn more. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I will now pass it over to Paul Sprague.
Thank you, Angela. That was incredibly helpful. And I will try not. I don't think I can duplicate any of it. I'm going to talk about something different. I am going to take my time to tell you a little bit about what's happened in Illinois from the viewpoint of an Illinois-based community solar developer. So I work for Trajectory Energy Partners, and we're an Illinois-based developer of community solar projects or solar farms that you'd see out on the highway, maybe when you're driving along. Sometimes thousands of panels on out in the field. The history of this is important, I think, to understanding how this all works. As Angela mentioned, there was the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, but back in 2016, in Illinois, for the first time, the state legislature passed a law, the Future Energy Jobs Act, which allowed for the first time community solar projects to be developed where community solar companies and the utility companies like ComEd and Ameren had to work together to accept the energy into the grid, and also to give homeowners and businesses and government agencies and others the opportunity to be subscribers to the solar farms. And when we talk about subscriptions, it's like joining a co-op or something like that, and you don't pay any money in, but as a subscriber to a solar farm, you get a savings on your electric bill every single month. So Trajectory started developing these projects back in around 2016 after the law was passed, FEJA, but the state, in giving out its grant awards, used a lottery system as opposed to a merit-based system, and Trajectory's projects were not chosen in the lottery. So Trajectory still stayed active, and I joined the company at the moment when that was all happening, and my job at the time was to work for Trajectory, but on behalf of another company. I did a lot of public education. And in 2020, February of 2020, which is when I joined, COVID was just hitting. And our education program, instead of going into people's houses and talking about it, we did a series of webinars over the course of a year and a half. I think I put on about 80 webinars, about one a week for a year and a half, educating people about how to be subscribers to community solar projects, and then following up and helping them to do that signing up. In 2021, as Angela said, CEJA was passed, and that created a new, more funding, more enhancement of the program, and it also allowed Trajectory's projects that already had been developed to pass through the system and get approval at the Illinois Power Agency and go on and to do more of those. And I would say at the time when I joined Trajectory in 2020, there were 10 people at Trajectory, and today there are more than 40, which tells you that the enhancement, the effect of the enhancement. Trajectory has now 29 projects currently built or in construction across the state, and over 70 more in development at various stages of zoning and approval by the Illinois Power Agency. So that just gives you a sense of how the magnitude of the scale up of community solar in Illinois. One of the programs that Angela mentioned at the state level, it's called the Illinois Solar for All program. It's administered by the Illinois Power Agency. They use this term for their program, the Adjustable Block Program. It's not, unfortunately, not a very helpful. Doesn't help you really understand what's going on, but basically, there are many categories of community solar projects, including Illinois Solar for All. And companies that develop those projects can go to the Illinois Power Agency and apply for grants or REC awards. We call them REC awards, Renewable Energy Credit Awards, which provides more return on the investment so that those projects pencil out. And it has encouraged, as you can hear from the numbers, many projects, not just Trajectory, but basically, dozens of companies and hundreds of projects across the state. The Illinois Solar for All program is one of these categories of community solar project, and it's wonderful in that it allows people to subscribe to the solar farms, but only low and moderate income families and businesses can subscribe. And that gives them a much larger savings on their electric bill every month than the average person at the other non-Illinois Solar for All projects. And I wanted to give you a great example of how this works for the on the ground person in Rockford, Illinois, where I've been doing a lot of my work. I do outreach, and I partner with a lot of local leaders, such as pastors of churches, leaders of businesses, chambers of commerce. One of the leaders in Rockford is the pastor Jeremiah Griffin, who's the pastor of a local church there. And he happens to have a large family, a family of his own and foster kids. He has 9 children. All of these kids have electronic equipment. So his monthly bill, electric bill, is huge. But since he's low income, he was eligible to join the Illinois Solar for All project that Trajectory developed in downtown Rockford. Sits on top of a former landfill, something that could not have been built on in any other way, but we were able to put the Solar for All program project on top of it. It has about 10 acres of solar panels, and hundreds of families in Rockford, low and moderate income families there, are able to subscribe. Jeremiah's now a member with his family, and his huge bill before now is much, much smaller, and in many cases, many months of the year, is a zero bill. So that's the actual immediate effect on people of low and moderate income, which is terrific for something that it's not easy for them to make ends meet. But this program attacks at least one part of their expenditures, and it's a great program for them. And that's all I have to say. And I'll take questions later, but I'm sure that Ben is going to tell us a lot more about the IRA and how that enhances the Illinois program.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say thank you to Illinois Environmental Council. I want to say thank you to Hal and the Trajectory Energy Partners, and of course the Sierra Club and Ben Jealous for convening us today. Very delighted to be part of this presentation. The second point I want to make is I just want to say thank you to all of you for joining, all of my constituents and others who are joining on this webinar, taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm really glad you're part of this, and thank you for joining. I guess the third point is a little more extended, which is why are we here? Why is this so important? I just want to scope back for a second. I just want to talk a little bit about the climate crisis. As many of you know, unfortunately, the Earth is warming, and it's mainly warming because greenhouse gas emissions have gone up so much that the Earth's temperatures are warming because the sun is not able to reflect off the Earth's surface back into space and instead continues to cook the planet. And we are trying to avoid a 1.5 degree Celsius or a 2.7 degree Fahrenheit increase in the Earth's average temperatures since pre-industrial levels. Right now, scientists estimate that we have gone up by almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So you heard me say 2.7 leads to a potentially catastrophic result. We're already 2 degrees toward that 2.7 degrees. And so, as the United Nations said recently, it's now or never. We have to confront the climate crisis. And if we don't, we're going to see a worsening of our weather patterns and an extreme kind of set of weather events that make today's extreme tornado events and hurricane events and wildfire events even worse. And just this weekend, I think all of you saw the devastating impact of Hurricane Helene on parts of North Carolina. As residents of North Carolina stated in Asheville, and I actually received some outreach from people in Asheville myself who are going through this, it looks like biblical level devastation following an apocalyptic event. That's what the mayor said this morning. And so it's time to act. And so in Congress, we took a big first step with the Inflation Reduction Act, passing it in 2022. And as you know, the goal of it is to ultimately reduce carbon emissions by upwards of 40% by 2030. So in the next 5 to 6 years. And so what it aims to do is to invest in various elements, including clean energy production. And as Angela and others have mentioned, there's a variety of tax credits to try to drive that generation of clean energy. I'm proud to be the co-founder of the Bipartisan Solar Caucus in Congress, and I helped to author some of the elements with regard to the solar energy tax credits meant to incentivize the production or manufacturing of domestic solar content, so that even at the same time that we're investing in solar, we're also investing in America. To that end, I'm very pleased to say that Illinois, which is where I represent in Congress, is set to receive about $18 billion in investments over the next 5-6 years. So that's a lot. And already people are seeing some of those investments come in the form of new solar energy farms, new wind turbine farms, obviously the purchase of hybrid vehicles, but also the construction of the electric vehicle charging network. I meant to say electric vehicle, not hybrid vehicles. And so we're seeing kind of the uptake of those energy tax credits in a big way here in Illinois. And I'm really excited about what's to come. But we have a lot of work to do. Let's not kid ourselves. First, we have to implement the Inflation Reduction Act even more aggressively and make sure that people are aware of the tax credits that are involved. And and make sure that that awareness translates into adoption. And then secondly, we have to take more and more steps in coalition with our friends, partners, and allies around the world in combating greenhouse gas emissions, because it's one thing for Illinois or the United States to take steps, but we have to do so in conjunction with others, since this is a global problem, not just a local one. And so with that, let me just close and just say thank you again for bringing awareness to the Inflation Reduction Act. Thank you for the audience paying attention to these very important topics. And I look forward to the question and answer session. Thank you.
With that, I will pass the mic over to Ben Jealous from Sierra Club. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I just wanted to take a moment just to thank everybody for all the good work. As we travel around the country, the Sierra Club is putting people to work, oftentimes in new factories, in ways that are truly transformative. I just got back from Georgia, where they have 1,800 people working in one factory, and the sister factory will add 3,200 more. And in total, that adds about 25,000 people to the local economy. And with the investment in the investment of $5.5 billion in your state, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering over, really means that, because of the congressman, because of Joe Biden, our president, because of our vice president casting the deciding vote, and we're bringing back manufacturing in the Midwest. We're bringing back, like I said, down in Georgia, in the South, in places that have been hit hard by the 65,000 factories that have been shut down in the past 30 years. And so the IRA is really turning the tide on the future of U.S. manufacturing, on the future of employment for folks who don't have college degrees but do deserve to be able to support a family, as well as us being able to meet the goals that we need to meet as a country if we're going to help stave off the worst ravages of climate change and reverse the trends that we're seeing right now. So I just want to take a moment, really just to thank everybody for the great work. Jack Darren does a great job leading the club, and the work that folks in your state did was really determinative. And Congressman's vote also really determinative in ensuring that the IRA passed. And it's good news for the state. It's good news for the country. It's good news for the planet.
Ben, thank you for your time today. There's a couple questions for you in the chat. There's actually one about data centers that we'd love to hear your thoughts on, from Linda Robertson. It says, I'm hearing from people who are concerned that we don't have enough energy with the renewable goals with the data centers coming to the state. How do I answer them?
There's a great report. There's a link in the chat from Chris Schuler, our national press secretary. And we just actually issued a report last week on how to do better around data centers. The reality is that the demand from data centers really calls on all of us to be even more aggressive about getting states to increase their goals for use of renewable power. And a lot of data center companies get it because it's the cheapest form of power for them to access, and the most reliable, the most resilient. And so I think that the basic response is, this is a dynamic in our economy. We're going to have to increase, our yield from renewables even faster to meet what is, in many places, very unanticipated demand.
We have a couple questions. The first one is from Kathy. How do you feel about the dam removal on the Fox River, and how can you hope to expand education of citizens on the ecological reasons for the removal?
Look, I think that the issue right now is cost. I feel it's a good idea. A lot of communities along the Fox River are also considering the removal of these dams. The Army Corps of Engineers says that under the law, it's up to the communities to help fund the cost of the dam removal. As I understand it, some communities are able to do that, and others are considering it. But it makes sense in terms of, you know, the ecosystem not being interrupted in the way that it was by all these dams over the years. On the other side of this, I should just tell you, out of candor, that some communities view the dams as being able to create, recreational opportunities that might not otherwise exist without those dams. And so I think those communities are trying to balance the different factors and costs as they make their decisions as well.
Thank you, Congressman. And I'll just add too that this is an issue Sierra Club, which is one of our amazing partners, who will be joining us shortly, is also following this issue really closely and engaging with local communities. And they have been partnering with the Fox River Study Group to make sure that voices are heard and implementation of the dam removals, it goes smoothly and, considers the impact to the local economy, local residents, and the environment. So I'll put a link to that information in the chat if folks are interested in learning more.
So this question came from Bob. They had some questions regarding the problems with PGM that manages the electric grid in about a dozen states from Illinois to the East Coast. Their first question was they have become the first part of the question is that they've become an obstacle to getting green solar and wind onto the grid. They set the hourly rates that ComEd either directly or indirectly pay for power, such as hourly customers. These rates tend to fluctuate wildly beyond their forecasted rates, and the spikes to sometimes make no sense to a lot of consumers on the cost side of things. And they wanted to know exactly how these problems could be addressed.
So PJM, you might be wondering what the heck is PJM? It's basically one of these regional transmission organizations that, by the way, the P stands for Pennsylvania, the J is like Jersey, I think, and the M is Maryland. So it's like a transmission organization, which, although the name suggests three states, it actually covers a broad swath of the Northeast and also important parts of Northeast Illinois. And what's going on is that over time, the resources within PJM that create electricity, that create power, are slowly going offline. So, for instance, coal plants and others are slowly going offline. So the amount of energy generated is slowly declining. You would think that they would then expedite the ability of, for instance, HAL's solar farms or other solar farms to be able to join the PJM and make up for the decline in these fossil fuel resources. But instead, it's getting tied up in unnecessary red tape. In my opinion, I'm kind of editorializing a little bit here, but there's like a backlog in terms of the number of renewable energy resources that are trying to join the transmission grid but can't in an expedited fashion. And so it's a classic case of red tape and bureaucracy, in my opinion, kind of getting in the way of renewables being able to come online and help us to become a more green economy. And so this is something that some members of Congress have taken up as an issue to address at the federal level, and I'm, working with them. But it also points to the fact that we've got to get some of this red tape out of the way for green energy sources to really make their mark as the Inflation Reduction Act intended. And so I'm hopeful that we can do that over time.
The question that came from Linda, which is right after, is that they're hearing people who are concerned that we won't have enough energy with the renewable goals that we've set with all the incoming data centers that are coming into the state? How should they answer these folks with these concerns that we won't be able to meet our renewable energy goals with the incoming data centers?
I'm concerned. I think that, some constituents have reached out to me and said, like, um, how are we going to meet our climate goals? How are we going to meet our carbon emission goals? And at the same time, generate the power necessary, given the incredible consumption from various sources coming online, whether it's data centers or whether it's even other places that are using tremendous compute capacity. Um, and so, my belief, again, I go back to what I was saying before, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but with regard to green energy sources, we've got to cut the red tape. We've got to be able to allow a lot more of this clean energy resource to come online onto the grid ASAP from around the country, quite frankly. And we have to take another look at these PJM or these regional transmission organizations and, do they make sense the way that they're currently configured? Because as you know, some of the clean energy sources in the country are more abundant geographically depending on where you are than in other places. But so you want to be able to transmit that energy across the country to where it's needed, and you don't want it to get bottled up in one place. And that's kind of what I'm seeing right now with the grid. I would be curious, Hal, can you jump in? What is your view on this?
At our level, so in Illinois, there really are two sizes of projects. The ones that we're working on are normally between 10 and 40 acres. And so that's only several thousand panels in a project. And so we really only deal with, for example, the local utilities, ComEd and Ameren in Illinois. The companies that are creating what are called utility scale projects, which can be 2,000 or 3,000 acres, and those are the ones that need approval from PJM, for example. And then the other one is MISO is, in the southern part of Illinois. So I personally, our company is not interacting with PJM as much. So I can't really answer, for that. I heard what you said many times. And so I would say I tend to agree, but it's not affecting these community solar projects. It's really affecting the very large projects, which, by the way, when they're built, the 2,000-acre projects are usually built, and all the power goes to one entity, like a data center or a large company that needs a lot of energy. And I don't know the politics or the red tape behind that, but it's not affecting these community solar projects as much.
And I believe there are a couple more questions in the chat. There was one asking for how can we get more information about Trajectory Energy? I'll be interested in learning more about local parishes, whether they would qualify for energy tax credits.
Great question. We have a great website. It's been updated recently, so I would suggest people go there first. I'm happy to talk offline about what I know dealing with local communities. My title is Community Engagement Manager, so I do spend most of my time on the ground in the communities, helping them understand about how they can subscribe and become members of these solar farms. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure you can get my contact information from Angela, or I can just tell you my phone number right now if it's okay. My phone number is 847-204-4170. And my email is hal@trajectoryenergy.com. So I'm happy to talk about it. And as I say, I'm probably, one of a team, but I spend a lot of time with people, at least in Northern Illinois, working on subscriptions. It's a part of these projects that is a benefit to individuals and businesses that they can get involved with the solar projects without putting any panels on any roofs or in the field. They don't have to be part of a project of construction. And so it's an alternative we certainly totally support people trying to use the federal and state money to put panels on their roofs, that we've got to do it anywhere we can. But for those people that can't do that for various reasons, being a subscriber to a solar project is another great way to get involved and save money at the same time.
That is awesome, Hal. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. And then there was another question. Someone asked, how is the Sierra Club working on supporting IRA implementation?
We have trained folks across the country to work. These are our volunteer leaders. Our state policy director, Jen Hensley's done an incredible job of convening volunteer leaders across the state to really equip them to work with Justice 40 communities, to work with cities, to help lead them, to work with counties, and even work with states to help lead them in taking full advantage of the IRA. Some cities like New York, that's manifested in the Sierra Club, for example, is working with a couple of council people and putting together the most aggressive municipal electric vehicle conversion in the country, getting it passed, getting it funded, and it's well underway right now. And we're working with other cities to replicate that. But the bottom line is that every Sierra Club chapter has volunteer leaders who are working on this right now, and their goal is to really make sure that there is above average adoption, above average utilization, of this from the government level, honestly, down to the consumer level, and encouraging neighbors to take care of it as well. I just got back from Columbia, South Carolina, where our folks are working with renters to make sure that their landlords are taking advantage of it as well, and helping to move them off of reliance on dirty fuels and towards being more powered by renewables.
I think we just got another question from Sadie. I know the IRA was passed 2 years ago, but I haven't really seen the results yet. What is the status?
I can jump in here. I think that essentially the progress so far. I'll just tell you a little bit that I know about it so far. Basically, it appears that 3.4 million Americans have taken advantage of tax credits to lower the cost of their clean energy efficiency upgrades and energy efficiency upgrades. More than 250,000 Americans have taken advantage of the IRA's electric vehicle tax credit. Companies have announced in the private sector $900 billion of clean energy and manufacturing investments. And it appears that there's been progress, but as I said earlier, I think we need to see more, and it needs to be faster at this point, because as you know, the warming of the planet is not slowing down enough at this point, and we're seeing the results every day in the news. And so I'm hopeful that we can kind of accelerate the progress at this point, but there's definitely been a lot of usage of the provisions of the act so far.
Yes, completely agreed. And that's a really great question. And I agree that every time we have these success stories, we need to be celebrating them. Success stories help us see that, the visibility of the IRA programs, that they are possible and they are working. In addition to the programs that the congressman highlighted, we're seeing hundreds of rural and small businesses and farmers in Illinois benefit from the Rural Energy for America program under the IRA. This is actually across the entire state. We're seeing all these benefits. Additionally, the Illinois EPA, the state's energy office, they're set to roll out the home energy rebates programs in Q1 of next year. So at home, let's say you have purchased a heat pump or you're doing some weatherization, these home energy rebates are going to be available to you very soon. And again, those public input sessions will be rolling out later this year. They're going through the blueprint design. They're working closely with the USDOE to get this off the ground and running. And so stay tuned. That's something else that's really exciting. And again, with the CPRG and the GGRF, those programs the funding has come to the state, and we're actually going to see the rollout of those programs very soon. I do see there's another question for Congressman Krishnamoorthi. With the emergency response in the Southeast and going forward, how do we maximize the rebuild to be more resilient to better deal with severe weather events?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think that obviously right now we're kind of in emergency response mode, and I hope that everybody sends their thoughts and best wishes to the people, especially of Appalachia and Western North Carolina, where they're still trying to recover. They're trying to find people at this point. They're kind of lost in the rubble, and the town is without water, without electricity. Asheville, North Carolina, which is a town of about 100,000 people. I think once they do the emergency response part and we're able to save lives and kind of get people on their feet a little bit, I think then we'll transition to, what a rebuild looks like. I think that in fairness to the people of North Carolina and this area, obviously it's going to be up to them and their choice. But we know that in other parts of the country, especially in places like Florida, what I'm always concerned about in terms of the rebuild is maybe repeating the same mistakes that we might have made in the first place in terms of, for instance, allowing for, construction to happen on what were otherwise thought to be places that would survive a quote unquote 100-year flood. And we now know after, repeated flooding that, these places are no longer inhabitable. You can't construct on those in those areas anymore. And so I think we're going to have to update our maps. That's something that I've called for in Congress in the past with regard to flood zones. We're going to have to update our maps as to, what, weather patterns are going to look like going forward. And then, make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes we've made in the past.
From Andrew, what challenges do you see in achieving bipartisan permitting reform?
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Congressman. We're gonna have a big fight at the end of this year over the Manchin-Brasso bill. The bill really would be a giveaway to the LNG industry in a pretty massive way, and set things up so there's not enough time to make sure that communities are consulted. And yet, if it takes more than 90 days, which is not enough time, for example, LNG permits would be simply approved. And so, it is a bill that contains some good things, but enough poison pills in there. And unfortunately, amongst a lot of Democrats, even, there is a misperception that LNG is a transition fuel. It's because they're only measuring it at the point where like coal emissions happen, which is at the end when it's burned. But LNG, of course, is a very different substance. And all along the pipeline, there are leaks. In the conversion to LNG, there are leaks. And so you have to look, and then, of course, we are sending this often to China. And so when you look at all of that, the carbon input, the carbon output is as bad, sometimes worse, as coal. And that's even before you get to the fact that us seeking to supply the international market has driven up the price pretty substantially for U.S. consumers, because the U.S. market is a cheaper market until you are competing suddenly with China and others who will pay more. And then all of that, when it, for example, and increasingly it is used to fuel the needs of China, then the pollution just blows back into the Western United States. So we have a situation where, on the one hand, all U.S. consumers end up paying more. And on the other hand, a good chunk of the country gets more pollution from what's produced overseas, in addition to the impacts on the planet. I do think it's possible there are better bills out there, but there does seem to be some momentum behind the Manchin-Brasso bill, and the environmental community is gearing up for a big fight.
With that, thank you all so much for your time, to our amazing guest presenters, to Congressman Krishnamoorthi, to Angelos with Sierra Club, and to Hal Sprague with Trajectory Energy. Thank you all for joining this informational session. and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.